Content warning. Flashing lights and images, violence, food, murder, torture. This video contains spoilers for the game DogDay. I love the adventure game genre. Despite this, there is one thing that a lot of them have that I just despise: unnecessary busy work. Those are the tasks in adventure games where even if you know the solution, it still takes vast amounts of time to get through, the only purpose for their inclusion to waste the player's time. And for this video, we'll be looking at a game that does this to the extent that everything else is relegated to the background: DogDay. But before going into it further, let's give some context on the game. DogDay was an adventure game developed by Asylum/East and released in 1997 for PC. There was also a PS1 version of the game, but it was a Japan exclusive. As for the plot of the game, DogDay takes place in a town under a fascist regime ruled by a dictator named Chega. You play as an unknown dog, on the run from the government after a failed assassination and looking for a way out of town. The only escape being through the subway, but a ticket is prohibitively expensive. To make that kind of cash, they'll need to work with CATS, the Coalition Against Totalitarian Society, by providing them info on the evil regime. And you may have guessed it from the name of the group and the game, that the game takes place in a world where everyone is a dog. Aside from naming choices like these, the decision doesn't amount to much. The thing that's strange about this plot, though, is that none of this is told to you in-game, at least not in any easy way to understand. The only place I learned about the main objective in-game was from a newspaper I found in a random trash can, and even then it's not clear that it's your objective. The goal of providing information to cats and escaping the town is not stated in the game, only on the back of the game box as far as I know. The intro only shows us escaping the police and taking refuge in an abandoned house, where the game begins. As we encounter other dogs in the world, we discover that there is no spoken dialogue in the game. Outside of various grunts, there's no talking, which I'm guessing could be because everyone is a dog. Along with music being a rare occurrence and the occasional sounds of the environment, it makes for a sparse soundscape. This results in a more eerie atmosphere, where everything is a little too quiet and lifeless to ever be at ease with your surroundings. A fitting mood for being in a town under a repressive government. The world of DogDay takes place solely within the town under Chega's rule, but how the world is defined is ambiguous and altogether puzzling. There is no context as to how Chega got into power and the town's relationship to the outside world. By having the goal being escaping the town through the subway makes me wonder why the government isn't checking who's going through it. This also suggests that there are other, safer places in this world, but at the start of the game, you reach the outer limits of the map, the town seeming to be suspended in midair in a vast void. At least that's what it looks like to me, and the game never explains this. It makes even less sense as we come to know that there's a sewer system underground, but the town is literally on a flat plain. I'm probably overthinking this, but it's just so strange that I feel like there must be a reason for these choices. Maybe it's because I don't have the manual. As for how the player moves through the world, it's the standard movement from predefined points in a pre-rendered 3D world. You'll start with access to only a small slice of the town, and gradually gain access to more as you progress, but its way of gating other parts of town is by not allowing you to cross the street. If you try to walk over it, you'll get sent to the dog pound, the game's term for prison. What this arbitrary map structure leads to is most of the puzzles centering around how to get to other parts of the town. Arbitrary is also a descriptor that can be used for the puzzles, which take the form of various inventory puzzles. Some can be pretty straightforward, such as getting a crane to lower a truck onto the street to cross it. Some can be clever, like deciphering a computer password by lining the punched holes in the correct shape. And of course, there's the needlessly obtuse ones like picking various sizes of icicles, putting them on a balance scale, and launching them at the correct velocity to break open a staircase. Yeah, That's a thing you do in this game. It's by no means amazing, veering into moon logic at times with how little some puzzle solutions are hinted at. But however you acquire the solution, it will be a short amount of time from that point to completing the puzzle. Unfortunately, those puzzles are not what constitute the majority of DogDay. Instead, the player is forced to wade through what I consider filler content. Mazes, arcade sequences, putting back ripped pieces of paper, and did I mention mazes? They serve no purpose in the game besides wasting the player's time doing needlessly repetitive or difficult tasks. There's 3 major sections of the game that I consider part of this, so let's go through them one by one and list how much time they took me to get past. The first section is the arcade. You have to deal with this pretty early on in the game, about 15 minutes from starting for me. So what you're supposed to do is get a high score on each game to get prizes that we need to progress in the game. To make it a little interesting, there are multiples of the arcade games, so there's a slight puzzle aspect in finding one with the lowest high score to make it a little easier. The games themselves are not great. They're copies of Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Asteroids, but their controls are bad. Puss Invaders, the Space Invaders clone, controls the best out of all of them, or at least in the early levels it smooths out the difficulty by allowing the player to shoot many bullets at once. As you get into the later levels though, the amount of bullets you can shoot begin to decrease, and accurate aiming becomes a necessity. Fortunately, it doesn't become so hard as to not get a high score. Pac-Dog, the Pac-Man clone, has a delay to the controls, so turning on time is a struggle. It led to a couple of deaths that could have been avoided with responsive controls. And then Droids, the Asteroids clone. This one is the hardest with its awful hit detection and bad spawning points. Controlling your ship is like Asteroids, just a bit more sensitive with the thrusters. This on its own would be manageable, but the hit detection makes it horrible, where being even this close to an asteroid results in a death. On top of this is when you start a level, it puts you in spots where you can't even react before getting hit. For example, there's no way to have responded to this in time. This game took me the longest to get the high score, but I was eventually able to do it. That's the end of this section, and in total it took me about 30 minutes. We get the prizes we need, one of them being a pass into a club, where we reach the next filler section, putting back together a ripped piece of paper. This type of gameplay is seen in a lot of other games, but I gotta say, this is probably the longest and hardest one I've ever played in any game. It's not a couple of pieces, there's a lot, and the space it gives you to do that is not big enough. So what ends up happening is that you try to spread them out so you can see all the pieces, but there's so little space to do that they end up layering over each other. This gets frustrating when you're further along in putting the paper together, as you can eventually realize you're missing a piece that's under another one, possibly where you put together the paper, so now you have to rip up the parts you finished already to find it. This is in addition to some of the ripped pieces being way too small that you could barely find them if they were hidden under another piece. It's just not fun or engaging. It took me about 45 minutes to do this, and this is almost immediately after the arcade section. It's not a great way to start a game. But after this, we are free of filler content until the tail end of DogDay, and it's the worst one. The sewer maze. Now, I've played some bad adventure game mazes on this channel, but somehow I keep finding games with worse ones. Eventually, the player comes across a sewer system that connects parts of the town with areas previously inaccessible. It's full of paths going either left or right at intersections, and this on its own would have been fine. Not good, but okay. What makes this the worst maze I've played is that it's a changing maze. In the sewer control building, there are 7 levers that, when pulled, open up the corresponding blockades in the sewer. The thing is, the game never tells you which ones need to be pulled in conjunction with one another, as far as I could tell. And you can't just pull all of them. Only a few can be pulled at a time. There's also no indication which ones you pulled are still active, so you can accidentally pull another one and completely ruin the combination. And I couldn't figure out a way to reverse this other than reloading a save. Now, I used a walkthrough for this game, and even with using that, I still got stuck on this part. This is due to the ridiculous amount of turns it takes to get to an area. Here, I'll list the first set of directions to get to our destination. Alright, are you ready? Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, 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 left, 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 right, right, left, left, right, left, 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 right, right. Pretty easy, right? And for this, even if you pulled the correct levers, the game doesn't tell you that this is the way to go, so that would be even more time trying to get to the right place. But if I had a walkthrough, what made it so difficult? Well, as you can see, every part of the sewers looks exactly the same, so if you accidentally go the wrong direction once, you'll be completely lost and not even know it. That is, until you hit a blockade. But that can also mean maybe you pulled the wrong levers by accident. So I reloaded and reloaded, trying the levers again and making sure I went the right direction, only to find out I made one wrong turn. But I figured it out and got to the area I needed to be in. But you have to go through the sewer maze again to a new area. And yes, that means another combination of levers and a new set of directions. Right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left, left. Do what needs to be done in the area, take the opposite way out, and we're done with the sewer mazes forever. About 35 minutes in total for all of it. That's all the filler sections in DogDay. Now, it may seem like I spent way too much time talking about the ancillary parts of the game. I mean, aren't the puzzles and story more important to discuss when reviewing an adventure game? Yes, but let's do some math first, shall we? Adding up all the time those filler sections took up, we get 110 minutes. The entirety of DogDay took me a little under 3.5 hours to complete, so 210 minutes. Okay, so divide here, multiply by 100, carry the 1. Half. These filler sections took up half of my time with DogDay. Technically a little more than half. So there's not much else to talk about in DogDay than these filler sections that I didn't already say earlier in the video. These sections really hide how little there is to DogDay. Really only 3 things of interest happen in the plot. We get the evil deeds of the government and save them on floppy disks. We give these floppies to the group Cats. We use the money they gave us to buy a ticket to leave town through the subway. The end. That's it. We don't talk to the Cats members and learn about their motivations and goals. We never see Chega outside of them sleeping in their bed when we break into their hideout. We don't learn much of anything about the main character other than they want to escape town. It's just such an empty game that I'm struggling to find something else to talk about. Going into DogDay, I thought it may have something to say about fascist governments, but there's very little there. I mean, at least it gets that fascist government equals bad, but doesn't delve much deeper into it than that. In the data detailing Chega's awful actions, it reveals the torturing and death of journalists, killing innocent civilians, efforts to kill and silence rebel groups, cutting civilians' food rations, among other things. You even hear the torturing when you go to the dog pound. But you never really do anything to help the situation, only giving the information because it lets you leave town. It's left ambiguous if the main character's intentions are good or not, so who knows. The only time I feel they do something a little interesting is not being able to cross streets. It's a blunt way of representing an oppressive regime, and while it is arbitrary in terms of gameplay, it at least is reinforcing how absurd these restrictions can be, where even your path through a town is strictly regulated. The fact that everyone in the game are dogs adds little to the plot or themes. After finishing the game, I think it was more an attempt at adding some visual character to the game, but without doing anything meaningful with that aspect, it falls flat. With most of the game being filler, DogDay is a game of Busywork through and through. There was a sequel planned for release in 1999 called DogDay 2: Chega's Revenge, but it was cancelled and didn't seem to get very far in development. According to the developer's comment on a Let's Play of the original DogDay, the sequel was going to be in a real-time 3D world. It would have been interesting to see how it turned out. And that's DogDay. Also, before I end the video, just for a funny comparison, in the script for this video, the discussion of the filler sections of the game are a little more than half of the script, so now you know how I felt when playing the game. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon or Ko-fi. Patreon is if you want to support me monthly, and Ko-fi is for one-time support. These videos wouldn't be possible without the generous support of my patrons and Ko-fis. Any amount helps this channel keep going. Anyways, here's my Twitter, my Instagram, my channel link if you want to subscribe, and some other videos I've made. Well, that's all I had to say. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you around.